You're looking for a desktop that slides onto a desk without stealing the whole surface, runs the apps you need without lag, and won't cost you a small fortune in upgrades you'll never use. The idea of a tiny box that can still launch Photoshop, stream 4K video, and handle a few VMs is tempting, but the fear of ending up with a glorified media stick is very real. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I spent a few days comparing specs, reading forum threads, and watching a handful of unboxing videos before I decided whether the HISTTON mini PC deserved a seat at my workbench. First off, the size. The chassis is roughly the size of a deck of cards, so you can tuck it behind a monitor, on a shelf, or even mount it to the back of a TV. For anyone whose workspace is a coffee shop table or a cramped home office, that footprint is a genuine advantage. You won't need a dedicated floor space, and the built-in fan means you don't have to worry about a noisy external cooling pad like you would with a laptop. Performance is the next big question. HISTTON equipped this model with an Intel Core i9-11900H, the same chip you'll find in many high-end gaming laptops. In real-world use, that translates to quick launches of Visual Studio Code, smooth scrolling in large Excel spreadsheets, and the ability to render 1080p video in Premiere without the dreaded rendering pause. I tested a multitasking scenario, 2 Chrome windows with 30 tabs each, a Spotify stream, and a local music library scan. The CPU kept the system responsive, and the 64GB of DDR4 RAM meant I never hit a memory ceiling, even when I opened a few Photoshop files at once. Storage is split between a 1TB NVMe SSD and a 2TB HDD. The SSD handles the OS and any active projects, giving you instant boot times around 8 seconds from power on to desktop. The HDD is a handy place for bulk media, archives, or backups you don't need on a fast drive. For a creator who shoots 4K footage and stores raw footage locally, that combo eliminates the need for an external drive rack, at least for the first few projects. Connectivity is surprisingly generous for such a small box. There's a DisplayPort, an HDMI 2.0, and a USB-C that supports video output, so you can run a triple monitor setup without a docking station. In my kitchen office I ran a 27-inch 4K monitor via DP, a 24-inch 1080p screen via HDMI, and a portable 15-inch laptop as a third display through the USB-C. The 3 screens stayed synchronized, and I never saw flicker or drop frame when dragging windows across them. For anyone who needs a panoramic view for code, spreadsheets, or stock tickers, that flexibility is a real time saver. The port selection also includes 6 USB-A ports for 3.0 and 2 2.0, so plugging in a mouse, keyboard, external SSD, and a webcam is a no-brainer. I connected a USB-C Ethernet dongle for a wired connection and noticed a steadier ping in online meetings compared with the built-in Wi-Fi 5. If you're in an apartment where Wi-Fi can be spotty, that extra Ethernet option is a practical safety net. Now, the things that might make you hesitate. The fan is built into the chassis, and while it stays quiet during light tasks under 30 dBA, push the CPU with a sustained benchmark and it climbs into the low 40s. It's not a scream, but in a silent home office you'll notice the hum. If you plan to run long GPU-intensive renders, you might need to keep the unit on a desk with some airflow or consider a small external fan. The thermal design is decent for occasional spikes, but it isn't built for continuous 100% loads like a dedicated workstation. Speaking of graphics, the unit relies on Intel UHD integrated graphics. That's fine for office work, web browsing, video playback, and even light photo editing, but you'll hit a wall if you try to play modern 3D games or do heavy 3D modeling. I tried running Blender's basic viewport with a modest scene. The frame rate dropped to around 20 frames per second. So if your workflow includes GPU-accelerated rendering, a mini PC with a discrete GPU would be a better match. Upgrade paths are limited but not impossible. The RAM is soldered, so you can't add more than the 64GB that comes stock. The storage, however, is user replaceable. You can swap the 2TB HDD for another SSD, or add a second M.2 drive if you need more speed. The process requires opening a small panel and unscrewing a couple of screws, nothing a DI-oriented buyer would find intimidating. If you're hoping to future-proof the machine for a decade of upgrades, keep in mind the CPU socket is fixed, and you won't be able to drop in a newer processor later. Who should buy this? If you're a freelancer who needs a compact workstation for writing, spreadsheet crunching, light video editing, and occasional coding, the HISTTON Mini PC hits a sweet spot. It's also great for a home theater setup where you want a silent 4K